Non è tu na. Wimpo! Ok, pivotara. Pomelo?
Well, welcome back, everyone. This marks our 8th week together in our 9-week leadership series. See, this week we'll be discussing something that is unavoidable. It haunts a majority of individuals and has been known to take down entire organizations. What we'll be discussing, you ask? Change. That's right. This week we'll be looking at Ken Blanchard's 7 dynamics of change. Now, often people and organizations alike struggle with the idea of change and really what that means for their future. I think it's something that we all struggle with, really. But noted author Peter Senge has accurately said that people don't resist change, they resist being changed. Change is inevitable, and many of the tools and lessons of the last 8 weeks will not only help each one of us go through change when we need it, but will help us to empathize with others who may be prone to be worried and anxious when it comes to the change that are happening in their lives. So I want you to think about this. In his book, Leading Change, John Cotter says, leaders establish the vision for the future and set the strategy for getting there. They cause change. They motivate and inspire others to go in the right direction, and they, along with everyone else, sacrifice to get there. You see, that has been our hope in this entire series, that by understanding and having a framework on how to lead like Jesus, all of us will continue moving forward in being changed and being more and more like Christ and less like our old selves. So I want you to discuss this question. Go around the group and have the facilitator ask who in the group likes change. And then I want you to raise your hand. And if you like change, I want you to raise your hand and explain why. If you don't like change, I want you to explain why you don't like change. And then I want you to listen to each other's perspectives, because it's super enlightening and I think will help you understand a little bit more about where other people are coming from. So go ahead and do this.
So now you've had an opportunity in your group to see, those of you who like change and others of you who, it's a little bit more challenging. Now here today I've got Pastor DJ and Lisa with us. Pastor DJ is our campus pastor at the Tierra Santa campus, and Lisa actually leads our sermon team here and speaks at campuses at various times, and it's great to have you guys. And today we're going to talk about the 7 dynamics of change. And these are really a great measure of how we can understand how to navigate it and help others navigate through it too. So I want to talk about the first one. I'm going to kind of look at these, and we can interact with these points from Lead Like Jesus. Now, the first thing is that you might feel awkward when you have to deal with change. And I like this one because the strategy here is for us to be okay with being awkward in the midst of change. So how do you guys feel, how do you guys believe this is a best practice in understanding how to deal with change?
Well, I think exactly what you said, acknowledging that awkwardness is part of change and being okay being awkward. We walk into scenarios and we don't want to feel awkward because then people might see our flaws. They might see that we don't have it all together, and if I'm awkward, I might say the wrong thing, or I might not handle that meeting very well, or I might not be able to execute the project the way my boss wanted, because he's asking for something different. And so that awkwardness can get in the way of being able to change. But if I step back and say, you know what? I'm going to feel awkward. I'm doing something new. You think of a child learning how to walk. Of course, they're kind of awkward as they start, but we're little kids learning how to do new things, and so it's going to be awkward for us, and that's. And
okay. It's a natural part of change, and it's a part of that novice, apprentice, journeyman, and master, the way of the carpenter.
Absolutely.
So, DJ, I want to ask your opinion on the second one as we move forward. And the second one says that you'll feel alone even when everyone is going through the same change. And the strategy here is to structure involvement and to be intentional about that. Why do you think that's key in understanding change?
I think a lot of times what we tend to do with change is we feel alone because we think, oh, well, no one's going through what I'm going through. And what I know that we tend to do too as well, is we create scenarios that may or may not exist. And so we go, okay, well, if I'm feeling this way, then, Sally must be feeling that way, and Fred must be feeling this way, or whatever. And so we create all these weird scenarios that just might not exist. And so I think that's, it can be a little dangerous sometimes when it comes to us.
It is. And the thing is, when we're changing, we tend to be a bit more inward focused anyways. So then we can isolate because we're just focused on, am I doing this right? Am I getting it? Am I understanding? Am I processing? Right. And so we isolate instead of saying, you know what, DJ, I'm really struggling with this piece. Yeah. Exactly. And it feels like I'm not quite getting how it is that we're supposed to be doing this. And if I embrace the opportunity to bring someone else into that piece, then it kind of negates that whole isolating.
And at the heart of this too is that we really understand that it's the importance of being in a group, and that's one of our core values here at New Break in regards to life groups. I mean, that's why you guys are all here right now. So we have this opportunity to engage in perspective by being around other people, and I think that's vital when you're going through change because we're all dealing with it. But we all deal with it differently. Yeah. So in order for us to really come together to make a difference, we have to understand that we can't be alone. The third one is, I like this one. It's a good one. You will think first about what you have to give up, right? Kind of shows our initial nature of everything. And I love the strategy that Ken Blanchard uses here. And he says to pray and ask God for help as you identify what you need to give up. Because oftentimes we think of it, what I'm going to lose rather than what I have to sacrifice. Yeah. So Lisa, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's natural for us to think that way, but the process of change by definition means we are going to have to give something up. But if I'm thinking exclusively about what I have to give up, I miss the opportunity to see what it is that I'm going to gain. Sure. And so I become so focused on, oh no, now I have to work until this time at night, so now I'm going to miss the opportunity to do this or to spend time with this person or all of those things.
So recently, Brooklyn, she has what's called a balance bike. It's
your daughter Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, yes.
And how old is she again?
She's 4.
She's 4.
So Brooklyn has this balance bike who it doesn't have pedals, so you just basically teach them how to balance, right? Well, we're trying to get her to stop using the balance bike so she could shift to a real kid bike with pedals and everything, right? Yeah. But she will not do it because she keeps thinking about all the things she won't be able to do with the balance bike, because she's really good with the balance bike. She'll go down like massive hills. She's crazy.
Really fast. I've
really
seen
fast.
her.
Yeah, she's crazy. She'll go nuts. It's awesome. But because she's so slow right now with this one, she can't quite get all the mechanisms and balance and pedal at the same time. She won't do it. And so
Oftentimes we're so
it's-
focused
yeah.
on what we have and what we don't want to give up, even if it's giving it up for something better.
Absolutely.
And man, that really speaks to what God has for us. You know, oftentimes He wants us to surrender, parts of ourselves so we can take on more of Him, which is so much better. You know, for sure. And it's funny because when you talk about kids and those stories, I mean, all of us who are parents are thinking about all the different stories that we have like that in our groups. Well, let's talk about the fourth one, because I like this one, especially in a new break world where things change, and because we're trying to respond to the needs that are out there. The fourth one is you can only handle so much change. You can only handle so much change, and the strategy, I love this, is to set priorities, and it's to have one or two things at a time that are manageable goals. So, DJ, how do you think that that's important for people processing through change?
I feel like when you set those priorities and you can manage it, I mean, it's change management is what it ends up being. It's the frog in the kettle. It's the whatever analogy you want to use to, slow amounts of change are the best things that we can manage. You get too much change at once and you overwhelm yourselves. And this is classic for any of us. The three worst things that you could do at the same time: move, get a new job, and have a baby. And so, I remember going through all those three changes at one time with Danae, my wife and I, having Brooklyn and going through all those three changes, and it was so overwhelming. I literally, no, maybe not literally, but almost lost my mind because you
like change. And I think that's an important part of this, is that whether you like change or you don't like change, you still need time to process that change, and you can still be overwhelmed whether you like it or not. And I think that's an important part we take for granted sometimes. Lisa, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that we can only handle so much change at a time, and people can only change so much as well. And otherwise, you're going to lose the effectiveness of what it is that you're trying to change. I think of it from a parenting standpoint. And when I was a new mom, I had a friend who had told me that one of the things they did with their kids was, in terms of behavior, they would have at any given time 3 things that they were working on. And that was it. So if being kind to your brother was not on the list of 3 things, they had to just ignore it whenever that situation arose, because only 3 things were what they were working on. And I remember thinking at the time, okay, well, how do you deal with those other behaviors that you're trying to deal with? And it's like, you're just gonna have to wait.
That's an
and
easy
deal with that
concept
one
to apply
afterwards.
just to adults. 3 things we need to focus on in order to get it right.
Well,
but I think that's a good best practice, especially as we're trying to apply a Lead Like Jesus philosophy to our families. Well, I want to move forward and actually look at the next question that we can discuss as a group. And I want you guys to ask these questions in your group. What is one of the greatest lessons you've ever learned? And was change involved? Chances are there was. What changed and why? And I want you to take a moment to really discuss this and drill down into this with your group. So go ahead and take a moment. Well, welcome back, everyone. I know that you had a good conversation about that, and hopefully one of the things that you discovered is that the lessons that we learn, there's always change that's tied to them. It's really difficult to have one without the other, and as we continue forward, we're going to talk about the last 3 dynamics of change. And DJ, I wanted to talk to you specifically about this one because number 5 on our list, and that is that we can't change because we don't have enough to change. We don't have enough resources. We don't have enough time or skill or talent or whatever it might be. And what the strategy is here is something very valuable, and that is to get creative. What are creative behaviors we can put into place? So what are ways that you've applied this and even struggled through it at times?
Yeah, I think part of who we are, again, we tend to focus on what we don't have. And so one of the things that I've been able to learn and be a part of, like with New Break, there's a lot of endeavors that we want to do. We have big dreams. Okay, we want to do gnarly things. And then we go, oh, resources. Oh, we don't have a lot of resources. Like with Tierra-Santa, we're outgrowing the venue. It's max capacity. So we either moan and whine about it, or we actually use the resources that we do have and make it the best possible scenario that we can.
And we've always experienced that the whining and moaning can be a very real option.
It can be, but let's not do it.
Well, it's one that people can choose, is my point. And that's one of the reasons why people struggle with change is because they don't get creative like you're talking about.
Right.
And so you were talking about having the Tierra-Santa campus at capacity.
Yeah, so one of the things that we did is we sat down and we thought, okay, well, what can we do? And so we decided to add an outside venue because the inside was just max capacity. So we added chairs outside, we got pop-ups, put a TV out there, and it's a legit venue. Actually, people choose to sit outside rather than sit inside because it's sunny San Diego. It's beautiful outside, and so people choose to do that. We asked them to go to, when we did New Break Nights, it's about a year ago that we did it. So we asked them to go to the night services, and we utilized the resources that we had available to us. And what's cool is when you lead well, people follow well. And so our people were awesome, and they've been great. So,
and I think what happens too sometimes is that we only focus on the one thing within the full scope of resources. So we'll think, oh, I don't have enough time to do this. Okay, you might not have time, but maybe you do have access to some other talent. So then you can bring somebody else in to help, or maybe you don't necessarily have access to other people to help, but you've got time to be able to resource and think it through. So being creative and letting go of your expectation of how it is supposed to work, and looking at what you do have and how you can use those opportunities, and then leveraging them to be able to affect the change that needs to happen.
Well, a lot of the time, it's our approach that needs to change. It's doing the same work or the same, take advantage of the same opportunity, but doing it in a different way. And I think that's a great point. Number 6 is that there is different levels of change readiness. So, Lisa, what does that mean exactly? Because different people respond differently. So,
they absolutely do. What I find is that I might be ready for change, but somebody else just isn't quite there yet. So in one of the team dynamics in which I work, if it is a really painful experience to me, I'm ready to revamp the whole process. Like, this process isn't working, we have to do it differently. I'm ready for it to change. But someone else in that room, it actually works well for them. They feel like it's an environment that they can think and that it meets them where they're at. I have to be aware that they are not quite ready to change yet. That need for change hasn't come to them. But that doesn't mean they won't change. It just means that they're not in that same place yet. So as a leader, I am challenged to then think of ways to be able to cast vision for them, show them the need for that, and then give them the time and space that they need to process it, because we all process.
Well, that's the big deal. I mean, what you said right before that, the purpose piece. People won't follow if they don't feel like there's purpose behind it. Or they may follow, but they're going to do it blindly, or poorly at best.
Yeah, you can't have change just for change's sake.
Exactly.
And I think the other thing too is that some people are like, yeah, I've been wanting that change for a while, where other people are like, man, I've never wanted to do that before. So it takes them a little bit longer to get on board, and it's important that we don't exclude them just because they're not there yet.
Right.
And I think that's a part of the strategy that I think is important, because as we're leading like Jesus, it's helping them and serving them so they can be a part of the adventure with us. So number 7, I want to get to this one. If the pressure to change is taken off, you'll revert back to old behavior. So DJ, what are your thoughts on this one? Because we have to be careful, because at the heart of change management is behaviors.
Right.
And that's always linked to culture. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's absolutely true. Anytime, especially when something doesn't work out, then we'll go, well, see, we should have never changed it in the first place. That's kind of some of the things. Well, and you alluded this earlier, and it's my favorite language right now, experiment. It's an experiment, it's an experiment, an experiment. Experiments fail. It's just what experiments, that's why they're called experiments. And so when you do things, you have this mindset, okay, well, this is an experiment. If it succeeds, rock star, awesome. Then that means that we could develop and build this success. If it fails, cool, it failed. What's next? But reverting back to what simply worked in the past is dangerous because things change. Things change all around you. So what worked back then 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago may not work right now.
And the needs of people change. So
They really do, and I think we can be fearful sometimes of failure and forget that it's through failing that we actually move forward. You know, the more we fail, the more we see, okay, well that doesn't work, but let's continue to try this. And that idea, though, of having to constantly have the motivator, sometimes we change out of significant pain. What we're doing really just absolutely doesn't work. We have, they use the phrase sometimes, hit bottom in what we're doing. That can happen in so many different contexts. But then in order to maintain change, once that pain goes away, sometimes then we want to revert back to the way we did things before. But realizing we need then a positive motivator to be able to consistently move in the direction of the change. You think about it with children. You know, that if you are positively motivating them to the behavior that you want, they are much more likely to do it. And it's the same with us. You know, these principles, and that's what I love about it, is that it changes, and as we're trying to do that in our homes or in our work environments or wherever we are, they work in all of those different environments. And change is going to be difficult, but it gets us to where God is wanting us to go.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great point because we need to understand that we need to celebrate. We need to celebrate the change and when it's happening and keep that pressure on, because if we don't, it's easy to return back to where we did and just say, oh, it just didn't work. And a lot of the times that has to do with us not seeing through the experiment, you know, like you had mentioned, DJ. So in your groups, what I'd love for you guys to do is look at the next question together. So in this question, what we're going to talk about is the behavior or attitude changes that you have made recently after going through this life group, because that's at the heart of this life group. If you're not changing, then what are you doing? So how are you surrendering this over to God, family, and friends? Now I want you to take a moment to discuss this together as a group.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed your time in life group so far. Today, what we did is we went over change and how it's basically inevitable. We also talked about how we must walk alongside and have empathy in the midst of change. You see, change, it challenges our preconceived notions. It challenges our habits and even the way we look at the world. See, if you'd like to dig deeper, I would like to encourage you to actually read the book of Nehemiah in the Old Testament. It's a really cool book about the account of how God has helped Nehemiah to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem by leading the people, managing the people, and really helping them understand change. And, by the way, bringing God's word back into focus. Now, I'd like your facilitator to split you into groups, a one-on-one, like guys with guys and girls with girls, and pray through the areas that life is really challenging at this moment. Lastly, I don't want you to forget to join us next week as we wrap up this entire series and look for ways that we can continue leading like Jesus. So have a great week, everyone, and we hope to see you guys next time, okay?